everyone, welcome back to my channel. Assessments are really what keep a classroom going. They're a big part of teaching and learning. They're used throughout the classroom. They really inform instruction and help make vital decisions in the classroom. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can create them, analyze them, and utilize them. Before I get started though, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. The instruction process is key to when you begin creating and analyzing your assessments. So you always start with the planning first, but that does include planning your assessments because you should always start with the end in mind. So you should look up those state standards, use your lesson objectives, begin planning the lesson purpose and everything that goes along with your lesson. But that also includes starting with your summative and formative assessments, sometimes even your diagnostic assessments. So you always start, when it comes to planning, your assessments first. And even as you teach and implement your instruction, you are assessing throughout that entire experience. So that when you're actually looking at your assessments, you are reflecting, you're analyzing that data that you collected throughout. You are looking at your formative and your summative again. When it comes to your instructional design, there are some crucial things that you have to consider. How are you going to deepen learning for students? How are you going to promote engagement? How are you going to track their progress? What are your expectations for this lesson and for all the learning activities that go along with it? How are you going to support learning needs of particular students? And how can you incorporate other areas or other subjects and even technology? So the first type of assessment is your diagnostic, and this is the type of assessment that's typically used before you actually teach your instruction. It's used to get an understanding of what students already know about a particular subject or topic. So things like a KWL chart, a poll, a survey, a discussion is always really useful when getting that kind of assessment data. The next type of assessment you've got is formative. This is what happens during your instruction because it helps teachers to adapt their instruction, modify pacing, and really get an understanding of how much students know and what you need to kind of talk about before you move to another area of that concept. So things like exit tickets, polls, thumbs up, thumbs down are great, sticky notes, even games like Kahoot is also great as well. The next type of assessment you have is summative. And this is typically done after a lesson or a unit. It often involves gathering how much students have really mastered the concept or a particular chapter or something. You can do portfolios, projects, performance assessments. You can do essays, exams, stuff like that. For performance assessments, if you are a WG student, you may already know what this is, but it's basically an alternative way to assess students instead of like the form of a test. I often think of these as hands-on kind of stuff, so like an essay, a project, a portfolio. Then you've got formal and informal types of assessments. So your formal is really like standardized tests, like those state exams that kids have to do at the end of the year. Informal is kind of like a low stakes assessment. This is really what teachers do throughout, like observations, exit tickets, feedback. And then you've got your benchmark assessments. And these are really done at a particular time. They not only assess students, but they also assess teachers. So how can you create your own assessment? The first thing you're going to want to think about is the purpose of your assessment and the learning goals or the objectives for your lesson. The next thing you're going to want to think about is how you're going to plan out your assessment. What's the formula? What are the tools, the criteria that goes along with that? Then you're going to want to design it. Next, you're going to want to implement it and then collect data from it. And then you're going to want to analyze that assessment and then kind of adjust as needed based on your students' responses and the data that you collected. So how do you analyze your assessment? The first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at the growth and struggle areas of your students for that particular data set. And you're also going to want to figure out your class average because that really speaks well of how effective your instruction and lesson was. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to identify gaps. So you're going to want to think about maybe some possible causes for students who reach competency and those who did not. The next thing you're going to do is you want to create some sort of graph or chart. And this kind of visual, I know it's an extra step, but it really helps you to understand how well your students did based on the different types of assessments you might have included, like diagnostic, formative, summative. It really helps you to compare and contrast. And it also really shows how much your lesson impacted your kids. The next thing that you want to do is you're going to really want to adjust your instruction and your lesson based on the data that you collected because it's really like evidence of your lesson, how well it impacted your students. So think about next steps that you might want to implement, especially for those that struggled. And then the last thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to reassess, keep reassessing and readjusting. Create an intervention plan, reteach if needed. So how can you utilize them? Well, there's several different ways that you can do this. The first is that you can collaborate with others. So maybe teachers that you work with or your administration, any kind of specialists that work with you as well, giving feedback to students and communicating to parents on how their kids did. Self-reflect, you as the teacher. Adjust goals and create new ones. Plan intervention if needed. Identify teacher gaps, you as the teacher, learning gaps, and possible strategies that you could use. Assessments really help students and teachers. They are a part of the learning and instruction process. They are beneficial for everyone's growth, not just the students, but also for educators as well. I do have free resources down below, and anything that I've kind of mentioned and shown you. Those are completely free for you to use. Thank you so much for watching and being a part and supporting my channel. I will see you all again soon. Bye, everyone.